Why are you so concerned about young people becoming an activist?
Uh, because with the brainwashing, they become activists for causes that are not good causes. I would say, it's great for somebody to want to become active for a good cause. I think any any of us feel that way, or certainly most of us feel that way. The question becomes, are you sure that the cause that you're working for is a worthwhile cause? And, I started being interested in politics and in its broader sense, foreign policy, what was happening in the world. I was there when I was doing that kind of stuff before I was 12 years old. I kept a scrapbook about the Italian invasion of Ethiopia. And, not very many kids are running around like that. I mean, and, as a kid, I listened to the shortwave radio every night and keeping track. I used to have maps on the wall with pins showing where the battles were. And I had all that kind of stuff like before I was 12 years old. And so I'm a little bit different than the average person in the sense that my memory of politics goes back a lot earlier than for most people. And, uh, and so I watched the Nazis under Hitler, the Soviet Union under Stalin, Mao Zedong's China, Fidel Castro's Cuba. I watched all of them have such an imprint on people's minds and twisting people who wanted to be activists into serving their crummy dictatorships. And so that's why I'm concerned, because we have so many people. I spent a big part of my life for the last 80 years. I've been watching good people get taken over by bad people and used. And I've also known the people who were caught up in it. I've known so many refugees from Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union itself, Chinese. Certainly, I had many friends that had defected down in Cuba, and uh, almost all the people that were involved in the Bay of Pigs that had originally been supporters of Fidel Castro. And so I've known, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of people who had dedicated themselves to a good cause. And the good cause turned out to be the most terrible cause imaginable. And they feel so bad. If you're an East European and you originally welcomed the Soviet army and the new communism that was going to take care of your country, whether it was Poland or Bulgaria or Hungary or whatever, there were thousands, millions of people that cheered and said, "Oh, this is great." It wasn't great. And so I watch kids today, they've been brainwashed, they've been self-brainwashed. And so you have to be concerned that they're going to become activists for terrible causes because they just don't know the difference. They don't know how to check it out. Look at both sides of every issue. Go and find out the background so that you make a decision based on the total picture, not some little thing. And above all, if you're going to become an activist for the cause, not for yourself. And so many people who become activists in this day and age especially, so many of them end up doing terrible things in the name of doing good things. And a great example today, because it's ongoing and we are paying a terrible price, is the fact that so many people do stuff theoretically to help people, but even more important, and they never say this, is they feel good about themselves. I'm a good person. I called for good things. And the great example would be Mrs. Merkel of Germany. 5 years ago, I guess it is, she announced, everybody's welcome to come pouring into Europe. come, you know. And they did. 1,000,000 of them came in. A lot of them drowned. A lot of them died on the way. And when they got there, things fell apart. But the cost was a lot more than that. They've riled up the political picture across Europe. They now have bitter foes where they used to work together because that issue of those million. And by the way, so many of the refugees that came and made it to Germany have been sent back because Mrs. Merkel, after a while, had to change the policy, and the policy began to be, let's ship the people out as fast as we can if we decide that they aren't eligible for coming in as a refugee. And so the harm that has been done, I mean, now they've fed far-right parties that didn't even exist, or they had a handful of members, are now electing enough people to serve in the parliaments of Europe. And it's brutal. And so that's what I'm talking about. Make sure, I can tell you that all those Cubans that thought that Fidel was a great guy and ended up at the Bay of Pigs invading, trying to overthrow Castro, God, they feel so bad about the harm that they did. And so that's the message I'm giving to our young people. Make sure that you're for a cause. Make sure that 10 years from now, you're not going to look back and say, oh my God, I contributed to this bloody revolution that we ended up having, or whatever it is that happens. Because you have to take charge of your activism. You own it. And if it turns out bad, then you've done a really bad thing.